The day you decide to leave M.A. with Tilda copyright Dicos in Fronteras. It's raining in Culiaca, N. Not the soft rain you remember from home. A hard, indifferent rain that hits the concrete and bounces back up like the city itself refuses to absorb anything. You pack your bag in a hostel room you've been renting for 11 months. A stethoscope. A worn copy of Harrison's Principles you've carried since residency. 3 changes of clothes. You're 34 years old. You've sutured machete wounds in the Congo, treated cholera in Haiti, set compound fractures in a field tent outside Mosul with no anesthesia and 1 working headlamp. You are very good at what you do. You have been very good at it in places where very good was barely enough. Your contract ended 2 weeks ago. You stayed because you always stay. Because there's always one more patient, one more crisis, one more reason to defer to life you keep telling yourself you'll get around to living. But this morning you woke up and felt nothing. Not tired, not sad, just empty. And you know what emptiness means in this work. It means you've started to become dangerous. You're zipping the bag when the knock comes. It isn't aggressive. It isn't urgent. 3 measured knocks, evenly spaced, like whoever is on the other side has all the time in the world and knows it. You open the door. 2 men stand in the hallway. They are dressed plainly a Euro, clean jeans, collared shirts. One of them is older, with a wide, still face and the kind of eyes that have learned not to give anything away. The other is younger, maybe 25, and he studies the floor like a student waiting outside the principal's office. The older one says your name. Not doctor, not sir. Your name, your full name, including the middle name that isn't on your ID badge, that isn't on your clinic intake forms, that isn't anywhere a stranger should have access to. You say nothing. He tells you there's a man who needs a doctor. He tells you this man cannot go to a hospital. He tells you that you come highly recommended a Euro. Your calm under pressure, your discretion, your particular ability to work with whatever is in front of you. He says all of this quietly, with the patient manner of someone stating facts rather than making a request. Then he reaches into his shirt pocket and sets a folded envelope on the door frame. You look at the envelope. You look at him. You tell him you're leaving. You tell him your contract is finished. You tell him you don't know what he thinks you are, but you're a doctor, not a Euro. He picks the envelope up and holds it out to you. You open it because you are human and curious, and the rain is still hammering the window behind you. There's 20,000 American dollars inside, in cash, in a city where the average monthly wage for a physician is $400. You close the envelope. You pick up your bag. You follow them. The drive takes 40 minutes. The younger man blindfolds you, not roughly but efficiently, the way someone does a thing they've done many times. You are placed in the back of a vehicle, and you count turns. You lose track after 7. When the blindfold comes off, you are in what appears to be a large private home. Not a mansion, exactly, but something close. High ceilings, cool tile floors. The furniture has been pushed to the walls of what was once a dining room. And in the center of the cleared space, on a table covered with plastic sheet, a man is bleeding. He is maybe 50, heavy set with thick, dark hair going silver at the temples. 2 entrance wounds in the torso, low and to the right. He is conscious, barely, and when he sees you coming, he tries to sit up, which tells you he still has fight in him. You press him back down with one hand and start working with the other. They have brought supplies. Not the right supplies a Euro. There's no imaging equipment, no proper anesthetic, no surgical grade lighting Euro, but enough. Lidocaine, gauze, saline, sutures, a bottle of isopropyl, a portable pulse oximeter still in its packaging. Someone did research. Someone knew what to ask for, even if they didn't know enough to know what was missing. You work for 2 hours. You irrigate the wounds. You locate the damage and you manage it without the tools to truly manage it, which means you're improvising the entire time, stacking decisions on top of decisions, each one dependent on the last. It is the most intense 2 hours of clinical work you have done since the field hospital in South Sudan 5 years ago. He lives. You don't know if he'll stay living a Euro. He needs a real operating theater, a surgical team, a blood bank a Euro, but he lives through the night. And when the sun comes through the window shutters and his vitals stabilize, the older man, the one with the still face, comes and stands beside you. He says, "You did well." You say, "He needs more than I can give him here. He needs—" "I know what he needs." The man says. He sets a second envelope on the table, different from the first. Thicker. He says, "For now, he has you." You look at the man on the table. You look at the envelope. You think about the hostel room you've already paid up and the flight you haven't booked yet, and the empty, hollow feeling that drove you out of bed this morning. You open the envelope. 3 weeks pass. You don't leave. You tell yourself you're staying until the patient is stable enough to transfer. Then you tell yourself you're staying because transferring him now would be a mistake. Then you stop telling yourself things and just stay. The still-faced man, whose name you learn is Rodrigo, sets up a proper room for you. Not a clinic, a converted guest suite with a hospital bed, better lighting, a cart of equipment that improves each day. He asks you each morning what you need, and by afternoon most of it appears. You start a list on a notepad by the bed. Portable ultrasound, for stands, a defibrillator, specific antibiotics. Everything arrives. No questions. No receipts. The patient €1, the man you save €1, is named Esteban. You learn this accidentally from an exchange between two of the guards. Nobody tells you anything directly. You understand that this is the arrangement. You treat. You don't ask. You don't know. And not knowing is its own form of protection, offered to you without your having to request it. Esteban recovers. Slowly at first. Then with a stubbornness that reminds you the best survivors you've known €1. The ones whose bodies seem to make a decision about living that the mind hasn't quite caught up with yet. After 3 weeks, he is sitting up. After 5, he is walking the length of the room. He doesn't speak to you much, but he watches you the way the very sick watch the people keeping them alive €1 with a total, almost animal attention. The first time he speaks to you directly, he asks if you have children. You say no. He nods slowly. He says, "That's easier." You don't ask what he means. You don't want to know what he means. The day he's well enough to leave the room, Rodrigo tells you there's another patient. The second patient is younger. A boy, really 20 or 21, with a gunshot wound to the shoulder that has begun to show signs of infection. He comes with 2 other men who stand at the door and watch you work with the flat focus of people paid to look at things. The boy tries not to make noise. He almost succeeds. You clean the wound. You debride the tissue. You pack it and prescribe a course of ciprofloxacin and tell them the signs that mean he needs to come back. You tell them this clearly and simply because the truth is that in this room, in this context, clarity is the only thing that keeps people alive. Rodrigo translates what you say twice €1, once in a room, once after they leave, to make sure nothing was misunderstood. There is an envelope, $12,000. You put it under the mattress of the bed they've given you. And then the third patient comes and the fourth. And somewhere between the 6th and the 7th you stop counting and start keeping records instead, €1, a private notebook in your own shorthand, dates and wound types and treatments, the kind of records you keep in any clinical practice. It is the habit of a doctor. It is also, though you don't say this to yourself, the habit of someone who has decided they are not going anywhere. Rodrigo begins to tell you things. Not everything. Not the things that would change how you sleep, but the geography of what you're involved in, described in the vague, oblique language of someone who knows that what you don't know can't be extracted from you. There are factions. There are arrangements. There are pressures from the north and problems in the east, and a particular corridor of territory that generates most of what flows through this house. You don't need to understand the specifics to understand the shape of it. You've seen organizational violence before. You've treated its consequences in 4 countries. What surprises you, and you don't let the surprise show, is how many of the people they bring to you are not what you expected. You expected soldiers, hard men with hard wounds and harder eyes, and some of them are exactly that. But a construction foreman comes with a hand crushed under a truck at a site where reporting it would mean losing his job and his papers. A teenage girl arrives with burns she says came from a cooking accident, and you treat the burns and don't ask, and then find Rodrigo afterward, and tell him quietly that if that girl comes back with injuries like that again, you will need to discuss it. He looks at you for a long moment. Then he nods. She doesn't come back. An elderly man with unmanaged diabetes comes every 2 weeks now. You manage his insulin, adjust his diet, Check his feet. He was a schoolteacher for 30 years before his son got involved in things the father won't name. He brings you fruit from his garden. You have a running argument about whether mango counts as a dessert or a breakfast food. You tell yourself this is the reason you stay. And it isn't a lie exactly. It's more like a truth that does a great deal of work for you. It carries more than its share. 6 months in, Esteban summons you, not through Rodrigo, directly, a knock at your door, and when you open it, Esteban is standing there in a clean shirt with a glass of something cold, which he hands you without ceremony. He sits in the chair across from your bed. He is larger than he looked on the table, when he was just a body in crisis. He fills the chair the way powerful men fill spaces, with the weight of decisions already made. He tells you there is a situation. A man, a senior figure, was shot 3 nights ago in a city 12 hours away by car. He has been stabilized by someone local, but that someone local has reached the edge of their competence. He needs a real physician. He needs you. You ask who he is. Esteban says, someone important. You ask what that means. Esteban says, it means that if he dies, it starts a war. And wars are messy for everyone. You sit with that for a moment. You think about the school teacher with the mangoes. You think about the girl with the burns. You think about the 20 or 30 people in the last 6 months who needed care and could not seek it and found it here in this impossible, illegal, improbable arrangement that you have built and maintained and justified to yourself every night before you sleep. You think about what happens to all of them if a war starts. You say, I'll need to know what supplies they have there before we go. Rodrigo has the list on your phone within the hour. The drive is 12 hours. You sleep in the vehicle, sitting up the way you've learned to sleep in vehicles in places where you're always being driven somewhere difficult. When you arrive, it is nearly dawn, and the man you've come to treat is already past what a less experienced physician would consider a viable window. You spend 4 hours working on him in a room lit by portable construction lights and assisted by a woman who turns out to be a nurse, trained properly, who has been managing his fluids and vitals with a precision that buys you the time you need. You don't know her name. She doesn't offer it. You work together with the wordless efficiency of 2 people who understand what's at stake and have agreed, without discussion, to set everything else aside. He survives. He will recover. On the drive back, Rodrigo tells you what this man's survival means, not in terms of power or territory or the economics of violence, in terms of a specific peace. A negotiated quiet between 2 factions that has held for 18 months and would not have survived his death. He tells you how many people live inside that quiet, how many markets, schools, neighborhoods, how many ordinary Tuesday afternoons that unfold without gunfire because an agreement 2 men made and both have, until last night, honored. You look out the window at the dawn coming up across the scrub and think about the 12-hour drive ahead of you and how tired you are. And you don't say anything, but you do the math. A year and a half pass. You have stopped thinking of this as temporary. You have stopped thinking in terms of timelines at all, which is either wisdom or surrender, and you're not always sure which. Your Spanish, never bad, has become something close to fluent. You know the neighborhood. You know which vendors in the market don't ask questions, and which ones know exactly who you work for, and offer you a discount that you stop refusing. The money is more than you've ever earned. You've sent some home. To your sister, who doesn't ask where it comes from. To a clinic in the town where you did your medical training. Anonymously, to an account you set up for that purpose. You tell yourself this matters. Sometimes you believe it. There are things you don't think about. The warrant, maybe. The license board in your home country that last heard from you 19 months ago. The fact that you have treated men who have almost certainly done things you can't say aloud. The fact that you know this and have treated them anyway, and slept and eaten breakfast, and had arguments about mangoes with a schoolteacher. The fact that knowing is not the same as complicity, and that not knowing is not the same as innocence, and that somewhere between the 2 of you have built a life. Tonight, a new patient arrives. You don't know him. Rodrigo introduces him simply as someone who has come a long way to see you. He is well-dressed, older. He carries himself with a specific kind of stillness that means he gives orders and is not accustomed to waiting for things. He has a condition, chronic, something he's been managing privately for years. with physicians outside the country, in clinics that cost more per night than your family's house costs in total. He can't continue those arrangements. The reasons are political, and he doesn't explain them. He has heard about you. He has heard you are careful, discreet, and very good. He tells you what he needs. It is not a crisis. It is management a long-term relationship, regular monitoring, medication adjustments. The kind of medicine that is quiet and unglamorous and means you are committed to this person's well-being across years, not hours. You look at him for a long time. You think about the door, the one behind him, that leads to the hallway, that leads to the street, that leads to 12 hours of road, and then an airport, and then a flight to somewhere that isn't this. You think about the nurse who handed you instruments in the dark without needing to be asked, the girl who didn't come back, the quiet that lives inside an agreement two men made, and one almost didn't survive. You think about what it means to be a physician, the original meaning, before the licenses and the boards and the billing codes. The person who shows up. You pull a chair up beside him. You open the notepad you've been keeping for 19 months, the one with a shorthand only you can read. You uncap your pen. You say, "Tell me your history." Outside, the city is loud with the ordinary sounds of ordinary night. Somewhere a dog barks. Somewhere a phone rings. Somewhere a man is bleeding and doesn't know yet that he'll need to find someone who will come. You are already here. You are already in the room. You were never really anywhere else.